Hi everyone! This is one I've been super excited to make for a long time, so I hope you could be as excited as I am. So what I'm going to do here is teach you how to get started in web development in this short video. And you can do this with nothing installed on your computer at first. The first half of this, which is all you need to really get started learning web development, you can do with a web browser and Notepad, nothing else. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so what you're going to do is open up good old Notepad. You're going to type like this, !HTML, and then close, and go down a few lines, do /HTML, and then close. Now you're going to do head /head, the same way. Now you're going to do body, close body, the same way. And you're just going to put some space here, and let's type hello world. This is Mark. So now what you should do is save this, and I'm going to just save it to my desktop. I'm going to make a new folder for it and just do test. Let's go in that folder and let's call it index.html and save it. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my desktop in the Explorer and go into my new folder. And I'm going to open this index. And voila! Look, it opens in the web browser and it says what I just wrote. So we can do a few more little things. Let's do an input. Well, let's do a line break. Just br/ like this. One more, br/ like that. And then let's do input type equals quotes text and close that. And let's just save that there. File, save. And let's go ahead and go to the web browser again and refresh it. So now you can see, and let me zoom in a little bit more. So you can see it says what I wrote, and it has this little input text box that I can type into. So let's do a little bit more. Let's go button and another button with a slash in the beginning. And I'm just going to do my button. And I'm going to save that. And there, I have a button now. Now it doesn't do anything because I haven't written any code. I haven't programmed it to do anything. So before we do that, okay, so you may have noticed that it's not pretty in Notepad. So what I really recommend you do at this point is install Visual Studio Code or Notepad++ if you have something against Microsoft or something. Just, these are free programs. You can go online, you can get them, and you can install them. Please do this because that's where I'm going to go from here. Just know that you can continue in Notepad if you want to. There's no reason that you can't. Visual Studio Code is basically just a really fancy Notepad. Okay, so now we have the same stuff, but we have it in Visual Studio Code, which looks much nicer. So let's go ahead and make a new file. So that's just going to be new file. And you're going to go ahead and save it. So save as, and let's just call it script. And the type will be JavaScript. So yes, we are now writing JavaScript. So in this JavaScript, we're actually going to write code here. So we're going to start with var hit equals function, and parentheses and curly braces. So what we're doing here is actually programming this HTML. So we're going to start with var text equals document dot get element by ID, and you can see Visual Studio Code is nicely helping me finish this. So I'm going to let it do that by pushing tab. So then I do parentheses and quotes. So the issue is we haven't done what we need to do in our HTML. We need an ID. So in this area, let's do ID equals text. It can be anything you want it to be. So let's go back to the script and now type text in here. And then the last thing we have to do is .value. Now be careful because Visual Studio Code wants to correct this even though it's already fine. So put a semicolon there. And now we actually will be able to get this into the code. Now the problem is, how do we call this function? So to do that, we'll go to the button, do onClick equals with quotes. Again, Visual Studio Code nicely helps me. And I'm going to do hit with parentheses because it's a function. So let's go back to the script. And now let's do an alert. Those are those annoying things that you see on websites. Alert, quote, and well, no quotes there, sorry. It would be just text. We're writing the variable text here, and you can see how it recognizes it. Okay, so that's going to be our whole thing. Let's do File, Save All. Now, if I go to this and I refresh it, and I type something in, still nothing happens. So what's going on? Why is this not working? Well, these two files need to be linked together somehow. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code, go to the index. In the head, which we have yet to use, we're going to do a script. So /script and do src equals, and then the name of the script, which you can see, it can see it right there. So I'm just going to fill that in, script.js, and then close, and it will automatically do the closing for me. Now if we do File, Save All, and we go to the browser, and we refresh it, I'm going to type something in, and push the button. And you can see it does an alert. The page says hello. So what did you just see here? Well, you actually saw something that runs in the web browser. It's something that you made. You actually just wrote a little program. Now, there are some downsides to this program. It's all what we call client side, meaning that everything that's happening is happening on your own computer in the web browser. There's no outside interaction. You can't send this to anyone else unless you send them the files or show them your computer screen. But you're still actually doing a little bit of programming here. You're starting anyway. So what's the difference between what you're doing and what normal web development is like? So the difference is that normally web development involves what we call a server. So what is a server? A server isn't actually a type of computer. It's more of a job description. So this computer here is a server now because it's running a server on it. And that's something that the computer goes from one thing to another just because it's doing a different job. Sort of just like, you know, I'm not a miner until I learn how to mine, and then I'm a miner, right? So basically, the computer now has a different task when it's a server, and it can now load up this web page to other people and show it to them and allow them to interact with it. And we're about to go into that. So the way we're going to do it is installing a program called XAMPP. Now, XAMPP is a LAMP stack, as it's known, but what that really means is it has Apache, which can run your HTML. It has PHP, which can do server-side scripting, which we haven't done yet. And it can do a bunch of other things. A database is probably one of the bigger ones. It will do a MySQL database. So let's just go ahead and go into XAMPP. Okay, so I just Googled XAMPP download. So I'm just going to click go to download. And I'm going to find the one that I need. So I'm on Windows, but there's also Linux and there's Mac. So for me, I'm going to do 64-bit Windows. It looks like this is the most recent version here. I'm going to download that. And you can see it's downloading. Okay, so now it's done. So we're just going to run it, and it's going to install this on my system as soon as it can open. So, okay, so it's loading up, and I'm just going to go through the installer. Just click through this stuff. It's a setup wizard. I just want everything. I'm just going to put it in my C drive, and sure, English, that's probably best. Let's keep doing next, and it's going to open up a little page for me while it installs, I guess. So just bring that back up if that happens. It says setup's not ready, push next, and it's going to go ahead and install, and this could take a little bit. All right, guys, so I have it installed now, and it went ahead and started on its own. So you'll notice, if you can see this, unfortunately I can't make it any bigger, there's this thing called Apache at the top with the start button. Go ahead and push that. So push start. Okay, it's going to turn green to let you know it's running. And now let's go here and type localhost into your browser. This comes up. So what is this? Well, it's something that was included with XAMPP. So let's take this. This is where we were. go to this PC, local disk C, and then open up the XAMPP folder where it was installed, and then the magic folder is htdocs. This is where everything is kept. See this index.php? That is what we're seeing here. Now, why is it index.php instead of .html? Well, we'll talk about that. But for now, let's do some stuff. First, let's rename this to indexold.php. That way, it's, I don't want to delete it necessarily. Let's just keep it just in case we need it later. Now let's go back to our desktop, or where we can get to our desktop here, and let's copy this stuff. And don't know how I got that there, but let's copy these two guys. And let's go back to, actually I need to go forward now to go back to htdocs. So now we're back in htdocs. Let's paste this stuff in here. And then let's refresh localhost and see what happens. I think I need to get rid of dashboard here. And there it is. There's our application, and it works. Okay, so what's different here? What's any different about localhost from just looking at the file? Well, so now you are running a server. So congratulations, the computer you have in front of you is now a server. And localhost is actually just the way to look at what's on your server when you're on that machine. So it's possible someone else on your network could see it by typing in your IP address. It's probably not going to work if you try it now, and I will get into that in a second. But it gives you a little bit more at your disposal now. One is a server-side programming language, and this one is PHP. The other is a database. So the database is something you'd have to create, and you can do it through XAMPP. We're not going to do that in this video, but it's something you could totally do. That means you can use the server-side language to talk to the database and remember things about people that they may not remember themselves on their client. So before, everything we did was client-side. Now we have the ability to do what we call server-side stuff, which means it's all your computer doing the work. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so the last thing we're gonna do, and let me blow this up for you again, is going to actually use some PHP. So what we're going to do is open Visual Studio Code. This right here, we need to be careful because we're still in our desktop folder, so we don't actually want to be working on these files. So let's just close them. If we do File, Open File, we can now find it in XAMPP the same way. Just go to local disk C, XAMPP, htdocs right here. And then we have our index.html here. Let's open that up. And you can see it's the same thing as it was before. But the first thing I want to do is File, Save As, and we want to actually resave this as a PHP file. So you're going to have to scroll down a little bit to find PHP and save it. Now the weird thing about PHP is that it looks a lot like HTML, but if you do something little like this, $PHP, now you're doing PHP mode basically. So question mark like that. And let's do like the echo here, echo, and I'm just gonna do PHP is awesome, and a semicolon, and let's save it and see what happens. So if I refresh the page, you can see it right here. So you might be wondering, why did we bother doing the echo thing when we could have just typed it? Well, that's something we'll get into later on in part 2 to this. But basically, when you did the echo, the PHP echo, what that was coming from is the server, not the client. When you type it, the client is interpreting this code and running all of it. When I do PHP echo, that means the server is actually sending it. And if someone else was viewing it, it would come directly from your computer. So the main difference there is that it's server versus client. And this is a big thing in web development, something that you'll learn about a little further on. Now, another thing you might notice is I didn't really give you that much code. I showed you one little function that did one little thing. And that's because I don't believe teaching people how to code comes through showing people how to do things that I thought of. What you need to do is look up stuff that you want to do and Google how to do the little things. Break down the problem into small problems and Google how to do it one thing at a time. Honestly, that's how I learned a lot of this stuff. Now, I do want to give you a few warnings, basically 2. And the first one is this. If you're thinking about doing a big project this way, you might not want to do it on your own computer like I am. And that's because, I tend to do stuff this way because I work in IT. and that's normal for me. But it's not really necessary to do it that way. And you would have an easier time going through some kind of hosting company to do this kind of stuff, where they give you a drive and it's already hosted and you can get a web address. It's a lot easier that way. You don't have to worry about a lot of things. And I'll go ahead and go over a few of them. One is that you're probably in a house of some kind, and your internet service provider may not make this easy for you. You will need to open your firewall in your computer for port 80 and port 443, and that's not a big deal. You can figure that out. But beyond that, you're gonna need to go to your router and then do port forwarding, where it says, hey, if someone's looking for port 443 or port 80, go to me. So, you know, whoever you're living with might not really like that. But if they're okay with it, then you can do it. Beyond that, your internet service provider may not provide you with what we call a static IP address. And that's the thing that makes this the most difficult, unfortunately. When I originally did this kind of stuff, I had a static IP address because Spectrum actually will let you have one for a fairly low price. They're good at that. So here, where I am now, and in most places, you will not be able to get a static IP address. You will be stuck with a dynamic IP address. And what that means is that every time that your internet resets, your IP address will also reset. And what that means is that if you send someone the IP address for the page so that they can see your page remotely, they can see it for a second, but as soon as it refreshes, for whatever reason, your power goes out or something, now you're gonna have to send them another one. And if you want to put a domain name on it, you're going to have to go back and reset that every single time your internet resets, which doesn't sound that bad, but believe me, it's frustrating. So if you're not really interested in the hardware part of this, you might want to consider using some kind of cloud provider. Another consideration is this stack might not be the one that you want to go with if you are doing something really serious, because there are others out there. LAMP stack, there's nothing wrong with it, and it's very widely used today. But there are more modern ones that run on Node.js, and Node.js is sort of similar to what we're doing, but it's not. It's different, and it has a lot more support for some of the more modern JavaScript frameworks. So keep that in mind. Okay guys, so that's my video. I hope this is helpful to someone. I hope that you can get started, even if you just stick with the first part where you're on your own computer and don't want to install anything. I think you can learn a lot from this. Again, just Google it. If you don't know how to do it, just Google it. So yeah, if you like this channel, please give it a like. And if you really like this channel, give me a subscribe. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I hope this helps someone. Have a good night.